In the dying gold-red light of a late summer evening, the dusty town of Red Mesa lay quiet under the breath of a slow desert wind, its wooden storefronts and leaning saloon sign creaking like old bones, all except for the lone figure pushing through the main street with the steady stride of a man who had seen too much and expected nothing more from life. That man was Cole Hartner, a rancher who kept mostly to himself, known by everyone yet understood by no one, a man who carried his sorrow the way others carried their guns, always within reach. Earlier that week he had ridden into town for supplies, never expecting he'd stumble across a scene that would change his life and shake Red Mesa to its core, but fate had a way of finding the lonely when they least expected it. At the edge of town, beside the old church, he saw her, someone he had only heard whispers about, the woman people referred to as the troubled one, the woman whose screams were said to echo through the night because of a mysterious, constant pain that no doctor, priest, or traveling healer could cure. Her name was Maren Hale, daughter of the late blacksmith who had died in a barn fire 2 years ago, leaving her alone with nothing but a broken home and a town full of cold shoulders. Most folks kept their distance, claiming Maren's pain was a curse, punishment, or maybe something darker. But Cole, with his stubborn heart and quiet, weathered decency, dismounted and approached her as she knelt on the ground, gripping her ribs and breathing hard like each inhale was a battle she barely won. The moment she lifted her eyes to him, he saw not only pain but exhaustion, a soul stretched thinner than rawhide left too long in the sun. She tried to stand but stumbled, and without thinking Cole caught her, his rough hand surprisingly gentle. "Easy," he murmured. "Let me help." Maren tried to pull away, insisting she didn't want trouble, but trouble had already found her, she just didn't realize that help had too. Cole lifted her onto his horse and took her to the doctor's office, ignoring the stares, whispers, and judgmental shakes of heads from townsfolk who believed she was better left alone. The doctor examined her briefly, then proclaimed he could do nothing, just like the last 3 times. But Cole refused to accept that, refusing to believe any human deserved to suffer like she did. He asked questions, real ones, not the fearful assumptions everyone else clung to. Maren, surprised by his concern, told him the truth. Ever since the barn fire, she'd lived with a crushing pain in her chest and back, a pain that worsened every day, like something inside her was slowly tearing apart. The town called her cursed, she called herself useless. Cole saw something else entirely, strength masked by suffering, a woman battling a war she never had a chance to prepare for. Determined to help, he loaded her onto a wagon the next morning and took her to his ranch where she could rest, eat, and breathe air not polluted by superstition. Rumors flew across Red Mesa like wildfire. Cole's lost his mind, he's brought the cursed woman to his land, he's signing his own death, but Cole didn't flinch. He cooked for her, tended the ranch, and each day checked on her like it was more important than breathing. Slowly, Maren's pain began to make sense. It wasn't a curse, it wasn't haunting, it was an untreated injury from the barn collapse, a cracked rib that had healed wrong, pressing into nerves and worsening with each passing week. Cole, remembering the field medic who once saved his own life during a border skirmish, used what knowledge he had. He crafted a brace, applied herbal compresses, made her rest, and massaged out scarred tissue with the precision of a man who knew the value of patience. For the first time in years, Maren slept through the night. For the first time in years, she laughed, a soft, fragile sound that shook Cole deeper than a shotgun blast. And as the days turned to weeks, townsfolk began to notice the impossible happening. Maren walking with strength, shoulders no longer hunched, her face no longer twisted with agony. People came to the ranch out of curiosity, then shock, then humility. Cole hadn't cured a curse, he'd simply cared when no one else would. But the peace didn't last long. One evening, the sheriff rode in, warning them that a band of drifters was headed toward Red Mesa, men known for raiding ranches and burning anything that resisted. Town meetings were chaotic, fear drowned reason, and every plan fell apart. But it was Maren, strong, steady, reborn, who stood up and shocked the room. She told them what Cole had taught her, that fear only wins when good people sit quiet. With Cole beside her, she convinced the town to build barricades, gather supplies, and prepare. When the drifters arrived at dawn, they found Red Mesa united, armed, and ready. The fight was fierce, dust clouds, gun smoke, shouts echoing off the hills, but the townsfolk stood their ground for the first time in memory. Cole and Maren held the north ridge, driving back the attackers with uncanny coordination, each protecting the other like it was destiny. By noon, the drifters fled, beaten and humiliated. Red Mesa stood not because of luck or guns, but because the town had finally learned the truth. Compassion was stronger than fear, and courage grew fastest in the hearts of those who'd suffered most. In the days that followed, the same people who once called Maren cursed now thanked her with trembling voices. Some brought food, others brought apologies. Cole, always humble, stepped back from the praise, but Maren didn't let him hide. In front of the whole town, she told everyone the truth. This man saved my life. Not with magic. Not with medicine. But with kindness none of you ever showed me. Her words struck like lightning. From that day on, Red Mesa changed, not instantly, but deeply. People helped one another more freely. Old grudges softened. Doors stayed open a little longer. And Cole, the lone rancher who once kept to himself, became the quiet backbone of a town learning how to be better. He and Maren worked the ranch together, side by side, both healing in ways neither had expected. Some nights they'd sit on the porch watching the desert stars scatter across the sky, and Cole, who never believed life owed him anything, finally allowed himself to believe and hope again. And as for Maren, she no longer lived in pain, not of the body, nor of the soul, for she had found a place where she was valued, respected, and seen. And sometimes, late at night, she'd smile softly and say, "You shocked the whole town, Cole." He'd tip his hat and reply, "No. You shocked me." And that was enough to carry them into a future brighter than any sunrise over Red Mesa. And if you enjoyed riding through the days after the attack passed with a strange calm, as if Red Mesa itself was holding its breath, learning to trust peace after so many years of fear. Cole and Maren had settled into a rhythm on the ranch, early mornings, tending cattle, repairing fences, and taking care of the land that had, in many ways, healed them both. Yet, even in this quiet, danger never truly left the Wild West, and Maren still felt the echo of her old pain, not in her body but in her heart, the lingering fear of abandonment and judgment. Cole noticed the moments she flinched at sudden noises, the nights she woke drenched in sweat, and he never let it go unspoken. One evening, as the sun burned gold across the hills, he suggested they ride to the old canyon trails, away from the town, to teach her how to trust her strength fully. Maren, hesitant at first, agreed, and together they rode through the rugged paths, the wind tangling their hair and whipping the dust around them like a baptism of freedom. Along the way, they encountered an abandoned cabin, half collapsed but still standing, a relic of another era. Curiosity drove them inside, and there, tucked in the corner beneath broken floorboards, was a journal, old, dusty, and full of handwriting that trembled with urgency. As Maren read aloud, they realized it belonged to a woman who had lived through hardship remarkably similar to hers, pain, isolation, and a town unwilling to understand. The words resonated deeply, each line echoing what Maren had felt in silence, and she realized that while she had believed herself alone, she was part of a chain of women who had endured, survived, and left traces for the next to follow. Cole watched her eyes brighten with a mix of sorrow and hope, understanding that strength came not just from healing wounds but from connecting with the stories of others who had survived. When they returned to Red Mesa, Maren was changed. Not only had she learned to trust her own resilience, but she had discovered a sense of purpose. She began helping other women in town, teaching them basic care, defense, and self-reliance, slowly reshaping the fearful whispers into conversations of empowerment. The town, initially skeptical, began to recognize that Maren's pain had forged a woman of unmatched courage, and Cole's quiet support inspired men and women alike to rethink what it meant to be strong. Word spread across the region about the rancher and the woman who had transformed fear into strength, drawing curious travelers and those in need of guidance. Soon, the ranch became a haven, not just for cattle but for those seeking knowledge, protection, and a place to heal. One night, as Maren and Cole sat under the endless expanse of stars, she admitted the truth she had only just realized: surviving pain alone is possible, but transforming it into something greater requires trust, connection, and someone willing to stand beside you even when it seems hopeless. Cole, in his quiet way, replied that he had never been alone either, that her courage had awakened something become the force that united a town and forged heroes' Wild West journey. Don't forget to subscribe.